Well, howdy y'all, welcome to the Social Regressive. Today's optics review is going to be a little bit different than normal. This is just a blanket buy this. I don't normally do that. If you are looking for a rifle scope for your deer hunting and you want something that can make your rifle a bit more flexible so that in the off season you can use it for maybe coyote hunting or being able to take some smaller game, do some things that are a little bit different, take that farther shot on a smaller target, this really is the scope for you. This thing is just flatly amazing. This is the Zero Tech Thrive from Australia, 3-12 by 44 millimeter. So yes, it has that low magnification that you're gonna get with your average deer scope, 3x, and you can just go right on past that normal 9 up to 12x. Because this does have that higher magnification, you're gonna get side parallax adjustment right here on the side. If you want to understand what side parallax adjust is all about, I recommend that you check out my whole optics series that I did. 17 parts talking about how to select the various parts of a rifle scope, how to select the rifle scope that's best for you and the actual situation where you're going to be hunting. You might want to check that out before you make any purchase. I mean, except for this one, just go ahead and buy it. But yeah, because this is a higher magnification, you're going to want to be able to not only roll more precise focus on whatever you're shooting at, but you want to be able to get all of your focal planes neatly lined up so that if you accidentally move your eye off the center of the scope just a little bit, you're not going to miss your shot, because that's what can happen. If you are not properly parallax adjusted, you may actually have your reticle lined up on your target, but because your eye is off center, you may actually throw the shot completely off. So this allows you to get everything neatly lined up. And because this is that higher magnification, yeah, you can do your normal deer hunting down in the 3 to 9 area. And then if you want to be able to deal with some smaller targets or ones that are a little bit farther off, you can crank this up a little higher and you can get more precision with this side parallax adjustment right here. If you want to just do your normal deer hunt, say you're up in the stand, you don't want to be fiddling with this, just go ahead and lock it on 100 meters for the parallax adjustment, and it's going to behave just like your normal 3 to 9 by 40 scope. The controls are all easy to work with. You have a nice, smooth, but firm parallax adjustment here on the side. It doesn't take a lot of turning to get between all of its various spots, but because the glass in here is so good, you don't have to have a whole lot of movement in here in order to hit your precise spot. We'll talk about that here in a second. The zoom ring is also, it's kind of a medium, right in the middle. It's a little bit firm. It's not going to accidentally spin on you if you bump it against your clothing, if you're out in the woods. But at the same time, it's also not going to throw off your shot if you are trying to roll focus and you can see your critter. It's probably not going to move things off very much. It's going to be pretty smooth to turn. The eyepiece adjustment right here, the diopter adjustment, this one is a little bit on the fast side for me, so I recommend that if you do buy one of these scopes, make some dots on here to remind yourself of where your perfect diopter adjustment is. And if you're curious to know what that's all about, you got to check out that optics series so you can understand the different kinds of eyepieces that you might have and why you need to roll a different diopter for different people's eyes. This form factor overall, 3-12 by 44, means that you're going to get a larger objective lens. That's good. It's going to absorb more light than your 40, and that's going to make this work into dusk when a lot of those animals start coming down out of the woods. It also means that it's going to weigh a little bit more. Also, the fact that this is a 30 millimeter tube, that means that this will weigh a little bit more than your average 1-incher 3 to 9 by 40 scope. Its weight is really not all that bad. Let me go ahead and throw out, I've got my, my stats right here on my phone. Its weight is 21.4 ounces. So yes, it weighs more than a pound. It's kind of in the middle of some of the other scopes that we're going to be talking about here. It's not the heaviest, it's not the lightest, but you do pay a little bit for the extra advantage of that extra magnification and a little bit of a heavier duty build quality as well. The 30 millimeter tube is going to bring a couple things. Yes, it's probably going to make this scope a little bit tougher than your 1-incher, but I think that they've also put some larger lenses on the inside. And the way that I can guess that is, first off, the image through here is just mind-blowingly good. We'll show that here in just a little bit. But also, these capped turrets don't have much adjustment range. This is not going to be a long-range scope by any means. This has 60 MOA of adjustment, And that's going to mean that you're going to pretty easily be able to get this on target. You're going to be able to get your zero. You'll have plenty of play in order to get in the right spot. But then if you want to be able to take some longer shots, yeah, if you're within medium ranges, you can do that. So maybe you can make some hits with your average short action cartridge out to maybe as far as 1,000 yards. That's probably about as far as you'll be able to push it because of the adjustment range that you have here. That's going to be 60 MOA up and down, 60 MOA left and right. And again, that is not very much at all. There are 3 different reticles that you can choose in here though. All of them are second focal plane. The one that I have been looking at, and you're going to see in this image right here, this is the PHR3. This is their professional hunter one. So this kind of takes the duplex idea, breaks it up a little bit. It gives you a central aiming dot, and then it gives you some kind of thinning lines around there and some gaps. And this may be a way that you can deal with moving targets a little bit better. So you can continue to see your animal, hold off, and be able to hit a running animal if you know your speeds and what sort of values you're going to be dealing with. There are also 2 other reticles. You have the regular duplex reticle if you like just a simple crosshair and you want to maybe be able to differentiate a little bit better out in the woods. And then you also have the mill dot. If you are someone that especially wants to be able to deal with some smaller animals at longer distances, if you want to be able to use this as your coyote rig, I would recommend the mill dot. If you're up at 12x, it's going to measure true, and you can bring your ballistics card out there and be able to deal with wind and drop a little bit better, actually a whole lot better than you would with your average hunting style of reticle. As far as the turret tracking precision goes, you can see in this video here, I'm going through by MOAs. This is MOA all around on the turrets. Remember that if you have the mill dot reticle, that's going to be measuring mils, but the turrets are always going to be measuring MOA. But these click very precisely. They have a pretty good snap to them. You can feel them. You can hear them just a little bit. This is not a turret that tracks up and down though to give you graduations. Again, this is not one that is designed to be really taking those really long shots, but it will get you more precise within those medium distances. But they do feel very positive, and it's easy to reset the zero. You can see this big screw here at the top. You can use a coin, you can use the rim of a cartridge, turn that off, pop it off, slap it back down, and this locks in by spline, so it's not accidentally going to float on you. It's just wonderful the way they built this all around. Everything about it is very precise, and it's not likely to cause you any issues out in the field. Each click is 1/4 MOA, as you would expect with a hunting style of scope, and for most of you, yeah, you're going to keep this thing capped. Now, even without the caps on, this is a waterproof scope, and it's fog-proof. And here's where we start getting into the really fun part of this. The glass in here is just excellent. Side to side, from top to bottom, it doesn't matter where you are when you're tracking through the turrets. It doesn't matter if you're looking off to the edge of the scope or straight through the middle. You are going to get a beautiful, pristine image through this. They picked some wonderful lens elements, and that's everything from the objective lens all the way back through the ocular. They all add up really well. You get very little chromatic aberration. You can see that there's barely any color fringing at all. This is one of those wonderful scopes that it doesn't feel like you're looking through a scope. It's more like you've taken the object and brought it closer to you. It's bright, it's vibrant, contrast is high, colors are excellent. And you can see when I zoom out the camera here that the 2 items, you're looking inside the scope and outside of it at the same time, and it all just matches up. There's no weird color cast to it. Everything is bright and vibrant. And I think that's what sets this apart in a big way from most of the other scopes you're going to find out on the market. We're going to compare here in a bit. Not only does its resolution hold up edge to edge and all the way through its adjustment range, but it just has a higher resolution overall. As you look at my resolution chart through the scope, you'll notice that we can see very fine details all the way down as these get smaller and smaller. That's not all. These lenses have some other tricks. As I point this at the camera, there's some brightness up here in the sky, and you probably can't see too much reflection going on. And that's because the lens coatings on here are really of the highest quality. We're talking about 92% transmission through these, so you're going to get a lot of light collection. Even with that larger lens, Yeah, this is going to work really well, not just into the dusk hours, but beyond. So after the sun has set, after you have that 30 minutes of trying to get your whitetail, this is going to continue to show you everything. Yeah, you can dial back to get even more brightness, but you can probably actually leave this scope a little bit on the higher side and still be able to see lots. And with these lens coatings, as good as they are, it's also going to prevent any of those light leaks, big reflections on the inside. So if you are pointing roughly in the direction of the sun, if that's where your animals are going to be as the sun is going down, you're not going to get that big washout that you're going to get with a bunch of the other scopes out on the market. This just kind of gobbles up light and doesn't allow a lot of those reflections. You're going to continue to see that deer even if the sun is just a little bit off axis behind it. It's just not going to bloom out like you're going to get with a bunch of other scopes. One of the big deals about the very low chromatic aberration that you're seeing in these images is that out of focus objects are going to appear very natural. This is just like what I want out of a good camera lens. I don't want anything distracting. I don't want weird circles on background objects, weird hard edges, and I don't want to be able to see it split into its component colors. It really makes for an unnatural, kind of horrible experience. I want to just see things, in focus, out of focus, with natural coloration, and this really does that. You don't get that kind of light bloom at the edges that you might get with certain scopes, so you get kind of a funky bokeh, where things that are out of focus kind of look like a whole bunch of rings. It's just very smooth overall. It's obvious that they have put a whole lot of work into the image coming through here, and then they've just tacked on their excellent mechanicals as well, and you end up with a scope that, like I say, is very, very good for the money. All of that beautiful image coming in through the front, filtering through the zoom elements and the erector elements, is not let down by the eyepiece at the back. You get very little tunneling on here. You just get a very thin black band. And all of this adds up to a scope that does exactly what I want it to do. I want it to disappear. I want to just feel like I'm looking at my target close up, and that I'm just, it's just me, the reticle, the deer, and my trigger finger. I want everything else to disappear, and this scope does that. That's why I'm raving about this, especially since this only costs $350. That's going to put you in loopholed VX2 to VX3 sort of territory. It's going to get you into some of the similar vortexes, but this is going to blow them all away. And let me describe some of the competition that we have here. Last year, when I went on that hunt with Winchester, testing out 6.8 Western, I'll put a link to that video up here, I was using the VX6 HD. So that's HD glass. It has a 6x zoom ratio, and it's a scope that costs about $1,900 plus. If you go out to Optics Planet right now, it's going to cost you about $1,900. I like this scope better, and let me describe why. Yes, the VX6 HD had some really cool tricks up its sleeve. It had that higher magnification ratio. It had a more interesting reticle where it had those lines for drop that I really, really enjoy. It had a really cool turret up top that had a zero stop built in, and all you'd have to do is just press this button, and then you could make your adjustments for different ranges, turn it back, and it would snap back into place. Really cool setup, and you can actually set it up for different drop values based on the cartridge that you have. It also had double the adjustment range. It had some really cool things going on, but its image did not compare to this. It had a little bit more chromatic aberration going on through it, and it also started to fall off at the edges where it wasn't quite the same focal plane, so you're losing resolution, you're losing the edge of your image. This one whoops it in that category. This also weighs less than the VX6 HD. And especially if you consider that price, $350 versus $1,900, I think I know which one I'm going to go with if the image is actually better through this one. We have similar notes for the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2. That's a 3:15 by 44. So 5x zoom ratio, yes, a little bit higher, but this is another one, kind of the same notes. For $780, you can get a lesser image. It's going to kind of fall off at those edges. You're not going to get quite the same look. It's not going to have the same contrast. It's not going to have the same brightness. This one really does beat it handily. the Bushnell Nitro. Now this is one that I really like the Bushnells out there right now. The Nitro, I've tested the 3 to 12 by 44 millimeter. It has the same adjustment range, so both of them are using larger lenses and kind of a thicker tube, so they don't have much adjustment range going on. The Nitro does have some cooler reticle options. I do like the some of the FFP ones that they had earlier on, and they have their Deploy MOA. Really cool reticle inside there. This one actually is lighter and it has better barrel distortion. This one doesn't really demonstrate much barrel distortion at all. The Nitro kind of does. That's where you get the kind of curvature at the edges of the image. You get a very similar image and ability to absorb light. This one might actually absorb light just a little bit better, but you do get fewer features with this, and yeah, you get those simpler reticles. But this one is a bit less expensive. So for about 400 bucks plus, you can get the Nitro. This one's 350. So yeah, you're gonna bring that down just a little bit. So here's the bottom line. Just like I mentioned at the beginning, this is a next level hunting scope. It really is kind of a next gen thing. The image through here is much, much better than I was anticipating or what I expect from scopes in this price range. This really is just a beautiful image, able to absorb a lot of light, produce a lot of resolution, and then just overall, this is something that takes that kind of deer setup and expands it so that you can deal with those smaller targets at longer distances and make your rifle a bit more usable in more situations. And now here's the really wild part. This is not HD glass. They actually make a model that does have HD glass. It also increases the zoom ratio from the 4x that you see here up to 5x, and it's going to cost roughly double. In fact, I think it's almost exactly double. But if you want to get an even better image, which I'm having a hard time understanding how you could do that, if you want the HD glass, there is that model available. I recommend that you go to Zerotech and check out their website. I think it's zerotechoptics.com. These guys are based in Australia, and they are making a product that really is knocking it out of the park. You can check out some other videos by Cyclops Joe Ray. I'm going to put a link to his channel here because he has tested some of the other models and he has come away with similar notes. Zerotech is putting together some excellent rifle scopes that punch way above their weight, especially in terms of that image. And he has found no problems at all with his turrets, even in some of the crazy tests that he's done. I did a little bit on this. I did kind of crank on them a little bit harder than most people are going to. This came back to 0 every single time. It tracked perfectly every single time. They have come up with some really good mechanicals, excellent optics, and yeah, Zerotech is not just worth your money, it's actually worth a whole lot more than that. Go check them out and let me know what you think. Those of you guys that buy these things, I know that Zerotech is kind of new to the American market. Those of you that end up buying some of these, let me know what you think. Put the comments down below and let me know if I was wrong about any of this. I'm kind of curious to hear from you guys. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Even if you didn't like this particular content, go ahead and subscribe. There's probably something coming that's more up your alley. Check out this playlist right here. This is going to have videos in a similar vein to what you just watched. These 2 videos we cherry-picked for you. And finally, the Social Regressive is on Patreon. So you can become a patron of the destructive arts and earn some goodies while helping us to provide high-quality videos just by kicking us a few bucks a month. Thanks a bunch for your patronage.